New videos every day.
What is important is the history of the beliefs and practices that specifically go with the final solution and the role of the doctors in it. Okay? What are the beliefs? You know, Roeder et al. Say psychiatrists, the men behind Hitler. What's that about? The philosophy justified as a scientific medical practice without the science to back it up, this is going to sound real familiar, is called eugenics. Okay? It's taking genetics and saying eugenics, positive genetics. You know, it's this idea that you can take genetics to improve the quality of the human race and therefore the quality of life on the planet. You know, you can use genetics to kind of weed out the defective and inferior genetic people and support the procreation and development of the superior genetic people. So in the Nazi story, it's called the Aryan race, the glorious Aryan race, and we will eliminate life unworthy of living, is a term that you'll hear. In 1920, a psychiatrist named Alfred Hoek and a German judge named Karl Binding put this document forward that was the seminal document that laid this out. It's called the Permission to Destroy Life Unworthy of Life. Okay, that was the scientific, medical, legal justification that led from one thing to another, this slippery slope. You know that slippery slope? It goes something like, they started with sterilization, right? And then started killing kids, and then killing mentally ill adults, and then the concentration camps, and then the final solution where they just started massively killing everybody who was Jew or Gypsy or politically dissident, right? But it all starts with this belief system in eugenics. Permission to destroy life unworthy of life. Now, was that a uniquely German phenomenon? You may or may not know that at that time, the eugenics movement was actually, if anything, even stronger in the United States than it was in Germany. In fact, some of the German people kind of decried that they weren't as zealous as these American eugenicists. And in fact, that document that I just mentioned is said to have been actually modeled after some similar documents that were being developed in the United States. Sterilization was very popular in the United States. You know, there was an institute in the Northeast, Harry McLaughlin and this guy Davenport, this Eugenic Records Institute, big push. Long story short, this is available in these different books I mentioned, but long story short, basically the Nazis ended up making them look so bad that they were sort of shamed into disrepute, and that movement started falling down, and gradually the sterilization laws that were recorded in different states gradually started coming off the books, although this phenomenon actually went on up into the 60s and even the 70s, and you'll still see in certain circles, like for example what's going on in foster care now, this vestiges of sterilization still going on. But it was very popular in the early 1900s in the United States. Ernst Rudin, famous German doctor, psychiatrist and geneticist, he's said to have really given the scientific credibility that argues for the genetic basis of mental illness, right? What happened to him? Just to give you a little perspective here, I've got this written up in my book. Okay, we talked about the sterilization laws in the United States, but what about Ernst Rudin? He's saying we have to do something about the positive and negative eugenics before it's too late. The fertility rate of the genetically undesirables is so great today we have every reason in the interest of humanity to address ourselves to the prevention of the genetically weak. That was in 1930. Where was he talking? Was that in Germany? No, that was in Washington, D.C. at an invited International Congress of Mental Hygiene. 3 years later, Hitler's elected Chancellor of the Reich. And then the story goes on, you know. The career of Ernst Rudin, whose resume could be seen as an indictment for crimes against mankind, on his 65th birthday in 1939, he was awarded the Goethe Medal for Arts and Sciences by Adolf Hitler. 5 years later, honored with a swastika. In 1992, right, the prestigious Max Planck Institute for Molecular Genetics praised Rudin for following his own convictions in racial hygiene measures, cooperating with the Nazis. That's in Germany. But you think that's only in Germany? Listen to this. An American organization, the National Alliance for Research on Schizophrenia and Depression, celebrated the growth of psychiatric genetics in a 1990 newsletter honoring Ernst Rudin as the founder. That's an American advocacy group around this concept of mental illness. Many of these former Nazi doctors immigrated to the United States and brought things like electroshock and drug research and participated in military drug experimentation with psychedelics and things like that. So you had the Nuremberg trials that covered some of the leaders in the Nazi experience, like Adolf Eichmann and that kind of thing. The doctors tended not to get a lot of attention. All right, so let's just hit some of the basic points here. Binding and Hoke, okay, the jurist and the psychiatrist who developed the document, Permission to Destroy Life Unworthy of Living. I want to make a couple of points here. One, Hoke is quoted as saying, the physician has no doubt about the 100% certainty of correct selection and proven scientific criteria to establish the impossibility of improvement of a mentally dead person. Okay? So get this, you know, they're 100% certain that they can select out the genetically mentally ill with no error, and that person is so defective they're basically mentally dead anyway, so we need to get rid of them. 100% medical hubris, right? So just keep that concept of selection in mind. Here's the other thing that's going on at the same time with the propaganda system in Nazi Germany. Films that make it very clear that the state must take over the responsibility for dealing with this great danger of genetically mentally ill and the proliferation of that to make our race impure and defective. The state and the medical profession must be wed to deal with this problem. Okay? Keep that in mind. It's not voluntary. Okay. We're going to select based on genetic and biological defects, our view of that. We're going to be 100% confident that we're right. And we're going to wed the state and the profession so that the state is going to give the profession, medical profession, that responsibility to deal with those people who are defective. Okay, what else? Two basic keystones, okay, and then we'll just tie this into modern day. Many German psychiatrists were committed to the idea of schizophrenia as an organic, incurable disease whose natural course was deterioration. I said German psychiatrists. That's still true of German psychiatrists today, but it's also true of psychiatry in general, and definitely true in the United States. It's not only schizophrenia, but all mental illnesses are considered to be genetically and biologically based, to be organic, to be incurable, to be deteriorating condition. That's what justifies the whole dynamic, which is called, one, we don't have empathy, so it's a doctrine of the absence of empathy. These people are defective. It's not about relating to a human being who's having life troubles. It's about somebody who's got a defect that needs to be treated.